I've had the Fellow Aiden for almost a year. I got it on July 12th of 2024, and the day that I'm filming it is the 22nd of June of 2025, so almost a year. I was one of the first people in the entire United States that did not work for Fellow that got their hands on it, and that's quite a bit of a story on that. But I want to go ahead and go over a couple of the features of this while I'm brewing it. So it comes with this carafe, and this carafe is required to brew in the batch brew mode. So if you have the batch brew basket in there, which we'll get into a little bit more too, you have to have this in there in order for it to disperse into for the liquid to come out. You have to have it in there. There's like a little stopper that is in there, but this is the single dose mode. So I'm going to go ahead and you got a little basket here that comes in there. You're going to lock that in just like so. Put your filter in there, put your coffee grounds in there, and you got two modes on top here. You have one that's 3 and one that's 1, and that just kind of indicates on whether you have the bigger basket or the smaller basket in there. And you have your modes here. You can select all of these different options here, which I'll go into in just a little bit. So I got a light roasted coffee here. I already weighed out 17.6 grams, and it's going to come out with 10 ounces of coffee. So we're going to get that brewing, and there we go. Now it's at 441 right here. You're going to hear a little bit of that. It's going to bloom. It does it pretty quickly. It does it pretty easily, and there's not much work when it comes to it. You can kind of hear it a little bit. It's getting a little bit louder than I expected on it, but that's okay. So a couple of the features here. This is all plastic for the most part. It feels a lot like the Fellow Opus. It has storage underneath of it for the cable, so it wraps around it so it can clean up your counter space. It's got the same little knob that you're used to on Fellow products, and it's got this little screen right here that's under like this kind of glass protection, and then it has this smoked plastic water container here, so you can barely kind of see the water level here on the side, but it comes out really easy for storage. Square boxy look. It is plastic, but I haven't had any like build quality issues with it over the year that I've used it. There is now an app. The first time I reviewed it, the app was not available, and on that app you have quite a few options. When you pull it out, you can create your own profiles on this app, which makes it a little bit easier to use. And that's a lot louder when you're sitting right next to it than what you anticipated being. But nevertheless, it's going. But on this app, there's all of the Fellow drops. So Fellow curates coffee from other roasters throughout the United States and beyond, and they sell that coffee on their website, and they have profiles specifically made for each coffee. So if you're used to doing Fellow drops, having this app and this machine would be super, super useful. Other than that, there's not too much to say about it. It's also on scheduled mode, so you can schedule it to start in the morning. You just have to have your coffee ready and know what profile you want before you wake up, and you can have it completely brewed for you prior to when you get up. Now, after owning this for a year, I decided that I'm going to get rid of it. I'm going to get rid of it for a few reasons. One, I absolutely hate this carafe because it's so large and you don't really have a place to put it. This is what the basket looks like in the mechanism that I was talking about here. So when you put this on there, kind of like clicks to allow water to flow. So it's not going to allow water to flow unless the carafe is there. However, there's no sensor to let you know that the carafe needs to be there in order for it to operate. So it can just fill up and not disperse, which I found kind of difficult on there. It doesn't work with all mugs underneath of this for the single basket. I use a Fellow Ember mug when I travel, and it unfortunately does not get the clearance that you need to fit underneath of it, which is slightly unfortunate. This machine has instant heat up time, which is super nice, and it can do cold brew, which will take a few hours or so to do. One of the frustrations I've had with this is there's customability on it, but there's restrictions that you have. So you can only go to one 1 gram of coffee to 14 grams of water ratio, so 114 all the way up to 1 to 20. You can't go down from that, which means I can't do the flash brew recipe that I prefer to do, which is where I brew hot coffee directly over ice and it melts the ice and then it becomes the perfect concentrated coffee that you need. I can't do that with this machine, which is very frustrating to me. It takes up a lot of space. It looks really dumb without the carafe in it, in my opinion. I just don't like this huge empty gap if you take the carafe out. You have to leave this open at the end of the brew in order for it to kind of air out a little bit and dry out, because all this is locked in here. But there we go. We're about 6 minutes out. You'll hear a nice little chime here. 6 seconds out, you'll hear a nice little chime. And now you have your light roast done. And I also saw that they have a espresso machine coming out, and it kind of follows this same little screen here, which some of the stuff kind of goes off of the screen. So when you go over to guided brew, which is what I selected, and you go into the Fellow drops, like half of this stuff doesn't fit on the screen very well, and it just looks like it's meant for more of a square screen, but they chose a circle one for a reason. It can also dispense hot water, which I find kind of nice, but it does it very slowly. The nice thing is when you take this out, there's no drips, because it locks. As soon as you remove it out, the basket locks, so you can't drip anything at all on it. So I got my pour over. I'm going to let it cool down for a bit. This does brew exceptionally good coffee. I've enjoyed all the brews that I've had out of it. This works nice on the counter. The reasons that I don't like it, though, is I don't ever do batch brew. So that's never really a need for me. I do it occasionally, but not enough to justify having a machine that can do batch brew. It's not a deal breaker at all for me not having it. It can't do the flash brew that I prefer it to do. And the ability to get other recipes is not the easiest on here. There's only select brews. I wish they had kind of some more options outside of light roast, medium, and dark, that they would have a like origin selection of coffee, like Colombian, Ethiopian, just to give you a better general brew for the origins that you have. I kind of have gone through and clicked through other roasters. So it is nice if you do the Fellow coffee, but I choose to support local, and I usually get my coffee from a local roaster instead and don't shop Fellow drops. If I did, that would change my perspective on this machine. I do think the value is here for $365 or whatever it is now. This machine isn't built like crazy well, but it does pack a lot of features in here, and that nice instant brew start is really, really good. In other words, you don't have to heat water up like you do in a kettle. Still really hot, but still really good. It does an incredible job. But I'm ultimately selling it because it takes up too much space. I don't use it a ton. It's very limiting on following recipes. It's just cumbersome to put it all in the machine. I like the convenience of clicking a button and stuff like that, but I'd prefer if there was more use of the app where it was just more outside of Fellow drops to have recipes and things like that. I would find myself using it a lot more, where I would have a lot more variety of recipes to choose from. That being said, you're going to see a comparison here coming up soon about my rebattle between the Fellow and the X-Bloom. And we're going to talk about those two together, the Fellow Aiden and the X-Bloom Studio, and kind of the differences that I have between those two and my thoughts going into it. But overall, this is a good machine. It just takes up too much space for me. I don't do pour-overs enough, and I think there's just better things that suit my needs outside of this. And I think for the occasional pour-over I do, I can just leave a kettle that's available for me, and I have everything else that I already need, because this doesn't have the grinder, this doesn't have anything, and it does take up more space than the kettle. I would prefer the kettle because I can just use the hot water when I need it for an Americano, for tea, for making syrups and stuff like that. The kettle just overall is easier and meets more needs for me than the Fellow Aiden as a whole. Great machine, just not great for me. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. Like I said, I've used this for a year. I gave it a shot. It's a good machine. I wouldn't steer you away from it, but I think there's just a better machine that meets the needs on my market. So thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and let me know if you have any questions.